The following program is rated TV MA-LSV. It contains strong language, sexual situations, and violence. It is intended only for mature audiences.
All right, so we're on episode 4, Planet Ratchet, and we decided to mix things up a little bit. We got out of the whole fight category and went a little weird this time. We went a little weird last time, but we're going different subjects. So my friend here, Marsha, and she's a professional, so I'm gonna let her introduce herself and explain what her gifts are and what services that she provides.
Hello. So for me, I always hate to put a label on what I do because there's so much to it and it's always changing. But basically, I'm what you would call, or people call, psychic medium, but I would say that I'm more intuitive, and it can go in a lot of different areas. It's not just talking to dead people. So I basically, like I explained to people, is I read energy. I hear things, see things, feel things, smell things, and sometimes even taste things, but it's all within my mind, almost like a thought that's not my own. And the energy and information that I receive is beneficial to others. It helps people to grow, to learn, to live their best life. And so I don't know what you would put that on a business card, but I say I'm a spiritual advisor.
Okay.
So yeah, I do readings, and I also hold a lot of workshops, events, and such in regards to helping other people hone in on their intuition.
Now, is this like a gift you have like always had as like a child, or did it like develop more at a certain age?
If I had it when I was like really young, I didn't realize that it wasn't anything that everyone else couldn't do, because I do remember seeing kind of weird things when I was little. Almost, I mean, if we're going to get into it, is like, I remember being probably 4 or 5 and seeing these like little gremlin creatures like scatter across my floor in my bedroom. And later on, I remember going to my friends' houses and being like, dude, your house is haunted, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at you like, what?
Right. Like, what? Like, yeah, that there's like this guy here, like I would just feel it, but I didn't know that it was weird. I mean, or is it? But you know what I'm saying. So over time, actually, the funniest thing happened. I didn't develop it probably until like my 20s. But when I was about 18, somebody I barely knew. I mean, it was actually a coworker of my dad's, gave me a book and said, here, I think you're supposed to have this. Read this. And it was a book by Sylvia Browne. I don't know if you guys remember who she is.
That name rings a bell, but you talk about her more.
So she was a psychic medium that she was on Montel on Wednesday.
Okay.
Red hair.
That's how I know her.
I was researching yesterday, so that's probably why I heard the name, because I was like, that sounds familiar.
I read the book Psychic Adventures of a Psychic, I think it's called. And It just basically, she talked about her gift and how she discovered it, or I guess in her family, it had run in generations. And anyway, find out later on, it's in my family too. Both my grandmothers on both sides had this ability. And I didn't find that out till way after I started already exploring this. So, but as I read her book, it was like, it kind of intrigued me to do more. And back in the day, there were chat rooms. And I found one that was like, you know, practice your intuition. And so I would just chat with people and tell them what I was feeling. And they would tell me what they were feeling because they were practicing theirs. I'd be like, you have blonde hair and a blue shirt, you know, and you just start to trust that. It took a long time. I think that was the biggest part about intuition, because this is the other thing I'm sure we'll get into. But everybody's intuitive to some degree. So anyway, I don't know if I answered your question fully.
Well, and I wanted to ask that because I had seen some videos where some of them were talking about that some of them had the gifts like when they were children, but because of like what you were talking about, they'd be alone in their room, they'd see frightening like eyes staring at them and stuff, so they like repressed it for themselves because it was just terrifying. So they said what they think they did is they like shut it off in their brain, and then when they're old enough to accept whatever they were seeing, then it clicked back again. So then it felt like they developed it at an older age, but they'd actually like shut it off when they were children.
I think that's what happened to me too, for the most part, because it was too scary. And later on, after reading her books and realizing there's a process and you can protect yourself and those types of things, then I was able to really start to, I don't know, be able to feel comfortable doing it. So, yeah.
Is there any? Oh, go on.
Oh, no, I was just curious. Is this something you do like, you know, full time? Like, is this your full time profession?
This is my full time profession.
Oh, okay.
I had a real job until, well, in 2016, I did my first like professional reading, and it was a group reading. And after that, the referrals just continued to keep coming. And I was doing this on nights and weekends, and I was working like a social work type of job during the week.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's draining.
It was just a lot. And I was like, in 2019, I had 2 teenagers at home and a baby and this job and this other job. And I was like, something's got to go. So obviously kids, right?
Right.
So I quit my job. People thought I was crazy, but I'm like, I got to follow my heart, man. This is what makes me feel good. I think it has more of an impact, because like when you're doing social work, yeah, you're helping people, but you're not always helping people who actually want your help. So it's just, yeah. So yeah, it is my full-time job now. So
no, and I can relate to that. I worked in law enforcement, and I quit my job, my real job, to do what I do now. And it's scary. Like every single day I'm like, let's hope the bills get paid. But you know, so far so good.
Exactly. And within this too, don't you think it's great because you have the ability to create more and more if you want? Like the sky's the limit. So I find it quite fun and fascinating, and I love to use my creative power and being able to help people and really listening to what people need, because as you've noticed probably like within the world, like certain things are happening. Like when COVID hit, that's like I quit my job right before that happened.
So that probably had to like onset some panic.
There was, but then I was like, wait a minute, I got to get creative here. So I did driveway readings. So I'd have people sit like really far away from me in my driveway and I'd read for them. I did online readings too, but people were craving that like in person type of thing. So yeah, I got creative. It worked out.
Well, and one thing that like, you know, works for you, and it's because you're a legit medium, is that you don't solicit. And that's one thing they say, if you're really skeptical, did they seek you out or did you seek them out? Because the ones that message you in your inbox, like, I got to come talk to you, I feel this energy, you know, you have been cursed. Like those people just want your money. Like you didn't even ask to have that happen.
Mm-mm.
How do you differentiate yourself from those people? Because I know exactly what she's talking about. So like, how do you, when you approach people who are a skeptic and, just like our last episode, I'm like the Debbie Downer over here. I'm like, I am a skeptic. How do you differentiate yourself professionally between what you do and what those people do?
Well, I would say, I try to think like from a perspective of an observer when I'm looking at things like this, trying to put myself above all of it to understand the whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do believe that there are, now maybe not the ones that inbox you and message you, but there are people who are intuitive, but perhaps haven't completely honed in on their gift, that are trying to desperately reach out to utilize that, but they're not quite ready to do it yet. And so they're energetically just not putting out the right
Vibe.
ready. Yeah, the right vibe. You have to be ready. You have to be like, you have to put all your faith in, this is what I'm supposed to do. Just like you did when you quit police enforcement. It's like you just had to do what felt right to you. And I just feel like the energy started to flow once I started to believe in myself. And in regards to those people who can't or who do utilize this wrong in a way that's not helpful to people but more harmful, I would say that they've got a lot of work to do.
Well, and a lot of it I've seen, it's like a fear tactic. They like try to make the person feel scared that if they don't accept their help, that their life is going to get much worse.
Right. And I don't reach out to people and tell them they need a reading. I've totally done all of this just by people being referred to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, if I do a retreat or workshop, I'll advertise for it and things like that, but not just to let my people know, hey, I got this thing going on. But also, going back to skeptics though, I just want you to know, like, sometimes people will have like a group reading and somebody will come in that is skeptical and they'll just sit there and
you can feel it.
Usually spirit has me start with them first. If I can unlock their energy, the rest of the energy within the room won't flow as well. And typically, I think there's only been a couple times where I'm like, and I've had to say, sorry, if you don't want to open up to me to read for you, then I'm sorry, I can't help you. There's nothing to do. And I actually, that just happened a few weeks ago, actually 2 times in a row. And I was like, what's going on? But the other person in the group had emailed me and said, so sorry that they acted like nothing you were saying was relevant. They said, and both of them said, for a matter of a fact, I can say what you were telling them was true, but they weren't willing to give
any jerks.
It's one thing to like go in, a little iffy on the fence, but to sit there and lie when like the stuff was hidden, just like, no, you still don't know anything.
That's exactly. I'm like, okay.
That's like the type of people that just don't want to pay though, too. It's like, I hated my meal, and it's like, well, you ate all of it. I hated it.
It is. What do you do? I'm not forcing anyone to do anything that they don't want to. And I will gladly give somebody their money back if nothing comes through. But, honestly, if I'm spending my time with somebody and trying to provide a service, the least they can do is just be open. Mm-hmm. I think there's only been twice ever in my career where I wasn't able to read for someone. One time, I don't know if the woman just wasn't, open either. But the second time was I had COVID and I thought I was ready to go back. And my spirit guides had a different idea. They wouldn't, nothing.
We are still sick.
Lay your back down, go to sleep, stop. So lady, I'm sorry, I give her money back.
That kind of like posed another question I had was like, how does this like affect, like if you get busy, doing all these readings, does that affect you physically?
Yes. I have to be very cognizant of how much energy I'm putting out. And it also depends on the type of reading. Like if I get a lot of suicides in one day, then that's even more draining because there's a lot more healing to be done. It takes a lot more energy I'm pulling from the client, from the person who's passed, from source or God or whatever you want to call it, is in order to heal. It's just like, I would think that a therapist would be really drained after a day of those type of things too. And I'm not saying I'm a therapist, but it just has to do with the type of energy. If I'm doing readings all day that are more upbeat, it doesn't take as much out on me. But I can't do. So people are sometimes will say, well, why do you have to charge so much per hour? It's like my work, the energy, how much energy it takes for me to put into that. I can do maybe max comfortably 6 a day, but that's only for 2.5 days a week. That is, it's so much. I can't do any more than that. Like it's too hard. And so therefore that's why the prices aren't like $20 an hour or something. It takes so much more than that to put that much energy out.
Also, I would, as much as like people like, oh, $20 an hour, that sounds great. That would almost seem sketch to me. Like, why is that's cheap?
Right. Yeah, I guess I have to. I mean, because honestly, when I first started, I had such a hard time charging people for the service, because I'm like, well, this is supposed to be something, you know, I'm helping people, and it was really hard for me.
I get that. I still deal with that at like charging people for, I'm like, well, you know, minimum, I'm fine with this, but like realistically, it should be this. Like, I don't want, yeah. I
think that's the trouble when you go into something with wanting to help people, that you have to keep telling yourself, like, you are providing a service that they need, so don't get taken advantage of.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I struggle with that.
I know. And a lot of like hairdressers, and they do that. It's the same thing for anybody in that kind of service, right? Any kind of field. Yeah.
And with you also do other things other than just like contacting people that have come to the other side. Like you've done like you check their health, which I thought was like interesting.
Yeah, I mean, everything, it comes to me, every reading is different. I don't think I ever have readings that are the same, if that makes sense. Like different, right? But I will have where I will connect. Okay, let's say I do connect with somebody's Uncle Bob, but I'm also going to connect with their energy and the energy that's around them in regards to people around them as well that are living. And I also connect with their guides, their spirit guides, and also with their overall well-being, which would include their health, which does include their purpose, which does include, you know, future, like it's almost like I can say, when I see something that I would predict as in the future, it's like one aspect of what could happen, but it's where they're headed towards if they continue where they're at. See, so that's why sometimes things that I will see, we all have free will. So we can we let those things happen, you know, for the most part. Now, some things are meant to be they are in your life because they're supposed to be. That's another story.
I kind of liked knowing that, just because like some people feel like, you know, like self-fulfilling prophecy, that if they get told like this is where your life's headed, they probably feel like there's no decision they can make to stop it at this point. And whereas like you're saying, like if you truly don't want it to do that, then now will probably be the time to start taking steps away from that. Correct.
Now, there are some things, if you've ever heard of this concept that we kind of map our lives out before we come here, or we're born, we choose who our families are going to be, where we're going to live, what we're going to look like, all of it. And what's interesting is there are some things on this map, on this blueprint, that are just solidly there, no matter what.
They're in pen.
They're in pen. You can't erase those, buddies. So, I mean, but there's so many other things that you can navigate around. But listen to this too. You have these little points where you can't change them, but you know what you can change? Your perspective. How are you going to look at that situation, and how can you grow from it? How can you learn from it? And how can you better yourself because of it? So it doesn't have to be, quote, bad or good.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. And so let's, just go ahead and get through that and get on to the next thing and live your best freaking life. That's what you can do.
And I like also, as you mentioned too, is that, you're not the only, person that can do this type of stuff. Like you said, there's so many people that are intuitive. They just haven't tapped into it, where there's these people that they feel like psychics and mediums are like superhuman, but that the reality of it is, if, we all have the ability to get there.
That's always my goal when I talk to people. I'm like, I love seeing your face. And I mean, I will be here for you, but my goal is to get you to a point where you don't need me anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, honestly, isn't that, I mean, it's always nice to have that confirmation. Because Allie, have you ever noticed when I do readings for you, it's like, oh, you're like, oh shit, I already knew that.
Mm-hmm.
Confirming what you already knew. But
I was going to mention that a lot of it is just that confirmation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it's nice to also hear from or get confirmation from people who've passed, in regards to maybe they passed in a way that was tragic or sudden, and being able to have that closure piece and things like that, so there are it's nice to have a reading, but it's like, I don't want that to have to be an ongoing thing. I had mentioned to my clients that I would like to slow down on doing actual mediumship readings and go more towards like spiritual advisory and helping people feel more empowered to do this on their own. And a lot of them kind of freaked out, like, oh my God, what am I going to do when you're not here? How am I going to talk to so-and-so, And so that's what I'm trying to.
It's like being a therapist. I feel like if you are a good therapist, you'd want your client to not have to go to you every single week or every bi-weekly kind of thing, and give them the tools to help themselves. And then you got the ones like, no, you shouldn't make decisions for yourself. Like, just keep seeing me until you die.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I thought was interesting, because you mentioned like you can see and hear and stuff like that, where I've seen like in some videos where it says some people are very limited. They can only hear. Mm-hmm. And some of them, they can only see things. So they're like trying to piece together like visual messages that they're getting and trying to like add on the dialogue to it.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I was gifted, like, because of my bloodline and just my heritage. It's a little bit easier for me. It's just like somebody who can play, who's a really good athlete, because it runs in their family and blah, blah, blah. Like, to me, it's like I have that natural ability on top of like the extra conditioning through my DNA. It comes through every sense for me. I'm literally playing charades with energy when I do readings, because I'll get things through, like, it's like symbols, whether it be through hearing, tasting, touching, feeling, whatever. It's like, it's a symbol, and I have to figure out which one does this mean this time, unless I get it through knowing, which is clairsentient. And sometimes I just know, and I can just tell you, this is what it is, and this is what I'm feeling like. But a lot of times it's the other senses too that aren't just knowing. Yeah.
Well, you're talking about like with your household and your family. I wonder if, because they were talking like some people had it as children and then they repressed it, they got scared, and then it came out later. If you were raised like in a household where it's very religious, and the stuff you were seeing, you're being told that's demons, that's demon, you should be careful, you're gonna get scared and shut that off like as soon as possible. So that makes sense that it wouldn't even necessarily just like, oh well, your DNA makes it to where, but the fact that you were in a household that was so open to it and lets you kind of hone that better than some people, whereas they see that stuff and they get frightened.
For sure. I think it's cultural too. My mom's from Croatia, and my dad's side was from Bosnia. So, I come from a band of gypsies. Early. So it was just more accepted, I think, because of that too. And when I met my husband, I was so scared to tell him, like, how do you say it? Like, how do you say it? I'm psychic. Like, I fucking hate that term, because it's been given such a bad name, That's not, anyway.
It's almost like being used like in some aspects as like, oh, you're like a magician.
People do want you to perform, you know, and it's so hard. When I told my husband, he's Bosnian, he's like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. But back to being a magician, that happened to me last weekend.
Oh shit.
Yes, this family came in, and rightfully so, because things were kind of choppy and just not flowing very well. They weren't understanding what I was receiving. Like it was, so the mom says, okay, listen, her son had passed away, right? She said, what was my son's favorite movie? Do you know how hard it is to just to get that? Like,
yeah.
Like, because things don't come in as just words like all the time. So, and apparently, you know, but anyway, I just looked at her and I said, I don't want to invalidate everything else I just already told you, because there's some truth to it somewhere. But I said his favorite movie was Princess Bride. And then they all started bawling because I got it right. I was like, oh, good job, me. Because, like, listen, it's not always that easy. Thankfully, this spirit was like, dude, they need to believe you, because they need to hear what I'm saying. Because he died really suddenly. You know, they didn't have any closure and things like that. And but then after I said that, they're like, well, actually, everything you were saying does make sense now. Like, okay. Anyway, so there you go. Ta-da! Like, I had to pull that rabbit out of the hat. That was, yeah, it was fun. I don't really usually like to be put on the spot like that. I like to give you what it is that I'm receiving. I just be as authentic as I possibly can. Otherwise, when I feel like it's contrived or I have to really try and it's not as authentic and it doesn't come out as good. It just doesn't.
And then does it feel like you're performing at that point?
Yeah, I'm
like you're on a game show.
Exactly. And I always tell people I don't do this for entertainment. I might have that in my, you know, the thing you have to sign it so that you don't like sue me, but it's not really for entertainment purposes in all regards, if that makes sense. I want it to be more so to be able to help you and heal. Simple enough. But I'm not a therapist, nor shall I replace one, just so you know. Just putting that out there.
Do you have to learn the hard way with like those waivers? Because I wouldn't have even thought of that till you said that. Like having to have people sign waivers, like, you know, for entertainment purposes only. Don't sue me if I tell you something that, like, did you have to find out the hard way about that, or did you like go through everything beforehand?
You know, I just happened to make one anyway. But then did you hear about that gal I'm telling you, there's so many psychic mediums or whatever out there that are giving us all really terrible names. I don't know the specifics, okay, but there's one that was in the Des Moines area that and told this guy that he had cancer. And then he went to the doctor and he got all checked out and things. And they said, no, you're fine. And then he went back and she says, no, you do. And then he killed himself.
Oh, that sounds like a mental health issue.
I thought he was going to like quit his job and like pull out of his savings.
Right.
That sounds like he was looking for an excuse. You don't just suddenly decide, you know, hey, you know what? Today's the day.
I mean, I get the whole like not wanting to like go out slow, you know, and live the chemo life and everything, but like wait until you're a little farther in before. Like,
yeah, that's
anyway. Yeah, isn't that something?
Yeah.
I don't know if that story I told was exactly correct, but it's definitely something along those lines, and it's just too bad because I never want to diagnose somebody. And definitely if they came back, I would say, okay, yeah, you need to make sure you just stick with your doctors then. Like, I wouldn't say, oh, no, you do, you have it again. You know, I would want people to be ethical, man. And I want people to do things the right way.
Have you ever had information that somebody from the other side was trying to give somebody and you felt like maybe you shouldn't tell, like, they're like, I don't know if I should tell them that.
You know, Allie, you know, when I sit there in a reading and I'm quiet for a minute, I'm actually, you know, telepathically having a conversation with this
Mm-hmm.
person on the other side. And a lot of times I will sit there and they'll tell me something. I'm like, are you sure you want me to tell them that? Yeah, tell them. No, really, are you sure you want? Yes, tell them. So if I really get it like that, then I do. But a lot of times it's things where I think, oh shit, this is gonna offend them if I say A, B, and C. But typically they end up going, nope, that's them. That's what they would say, you know.
Mm-hmm.
As far as bad news or or you know, information that's going to be daunting, let me think about that for a second, because I typically won't get like doom or gloom, as I call it, like messages. Obviously, if something really tragic is going to occur, a lot of times, if there's no way for them to be able to pivot from that happening, I won't see it.
Okay.
I won't see it because they're not supposed to know, or they're not supposed to see. But if it's like a warning, like, hey, if you decide to do A, B, and C, you better be careful because blah, blah, blah. Then I will get messages like that. And a lot of times they will listen. Like I said to someone, I said, your dad really needs to watch his health, you know, start doing more physical activity, because I do see that there could be heart issues in the future. And then they contacted me the next year and said, you were right. My dad passed from a heart attack, blah, blah, blah. So, you know,
That kind of
that's
goes to what you're talking about, you know, the in pen ink lines, and then the, you know, the ones that you can erase and change. If it's
yep.
like an in ink line, you don't get that information.
No, no. I mean, sometimes people will be like, well, so-and-so die, you know, or something like that. I'm like, all I say is I don't predict birth and I don't predict death. I just don't. I won't. Everybody has free will, and a soul has free will, whether that's going to be their entering point or their exiting point. I think that there's different options. Interestingly enough, I think we all have several exit points throughout our life where we could die if we wanted to, like our soul wanted to exit at that point. I would call those our optional exits, but then we have our non-negotiable exit point, which is like, nope, end of the line. That's the end of our contract. We have to go now.
One thing I seen that I thought was interesting, they were trying to explain like the whole, because you were talking about, you know, they have their guides, you know, and stuff like that, people looking out for them. I was always wondering, like, so what differentiates, like, you know, a spirit that you knew that watches you, and like a guide, and then an ancestor, and then your angels. And they're trying to explain that your soul is like an orange, and like you get a, you know, like a wedge will come down to be in the body, and then you still have that whole orange that's your ancestors, your guides, and everything. They still exist. It's still you, still came from the same thing, but you could only take one slice worth to put in a body.
Yes, because our souls, basically our bodies wouldn't be able to handle an entire soul. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's too much energy. Like, we would combust. It wouldn't work. But also, like, we have our higher selves and our ancestors and our spirit guides and all those things on the other sides to it. I almost think of it like ground control, like when NASA, like if a man really were to go to the moon. I don't think he did. Anyway, we're on the moon and they're all like, okay, yeah, do this, do that. We need them. We need that all over there in order to be here. Being human beings is tough. And we are, honestly, not all souls are granted the right to go to Earth. Earth is a tough school for souls. And so it takes a whole entire village, team, whatever, to be able to conduct our lives here.
We're a reality show, each of us.
It is. It is. It really is. I've seen so many situations where I do believe our loved ones come in. Okay, if we had loved ones here, we knew them in life and then they passed. They do watch over us. But I also feel like with them, they are close to us because they're part of our same soul group a lot of times, which means that we inhabit, when we come and incarnate onto Earth, we tend to incarnate with the same soul group. And so they have a closeness to us because of that. And so they are very and paying attention and loving on us from over there. I feel like they have a lot of things that they're doing. They could do simultaneously as they watch over us. Our spirit guides, from what I've felt, are assigned before birth. They have a very specific role. There will be different spirit guides for different parts of our lives or different like tasks in our lives, who are dedicated to our life, and that's it. And so each one of us has at least one spirit guide, but most people I see have more than one. Ancestors, I feel like is right on to what you said, as far as they are a part of us, you know, but they're just on that other level.
I find this all super fascinating. Like, I've not been introduced to any of this, like on, I guess, an educational level, like where I'm learning, you know, the stuff you're talking about. It's always been like, you know, I don't know, the only thing I can like equate it to is like the Scooby-Doo version, like, you know. So
Miss Cleo?
Yeah, Miss Cleo. There we go. Miss Cleo. That was like when she talked to me about like this segment, and that was like my first thought was like Miss Cleo or like John Edwards.
A character is gonna come out.
Right, exactly. I was like, oh, this is like just a person just talking about stuff, like not like Miss Cleo's crazy phone line, you know, with a wild Jamaican accent.
No, I think that's why I had a hard time like jumping into this role, that, you know, of being authentically who I am and just being an intuitive, is because I do have a logical mind, and this was outside of what continue to like prove evidential, like with evidence,
Right.
and very hard for me. I have my master's in public administration, and I you know, I had done that with the hopes of opening my own youth center. Not something that's not going to happen. It's just other things have started to happen before it. But, you know, it's just, I try to let people know that you don't have to be all woo-woo-y to be able to be intuitive. Nor
Or
to
say
be
live, light, love after every sentence.
right. Yeah. So I don't know. It's a matter of perspective, I guess, in that too. But I'm glad I'm being able to talk to you guys today, because that's what I want to break, is that kind of stigma, you know, of what it is. Yeah.
And that's like, you know, that's originally like why I wanted you on, because like I've used your services and it was really helpful to me for like what I needed for. And I feel like a lot of people, yeah, they're expecting like this crystal ball, they're expecting this gypsy get up, you know, and all this stuff, or, you know, like these very straight answers or these doomsday like premonitions. And it really wards people from even like finding out.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing if it even like that's something they could even utilize.
Oh, for sure. And that just made me think of like, I did an event back in my hometown, and that was kind of like my coming out, going back to my hometown, because it wasn't something I would have shared there, right? But I did it. And I did it in May. So I called it the Magical Mystical May Fest, and was like, you know, for kids and families. We had stuff that had to do with fairies and you know, like just fun little arts and crafts for the kids and stuff like that.
I'm sold. That sounds like a blast.
And I have my daughter's gonna do a little cameo for a second.
My cat's been doing.
Yeah, I was gonna say her baby's been on already.
And so it was real. I thought, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so much fun. We're gonna do like maypole decorating and making little fairy houses and story time for the kids and like all these arts and crafts. It was just supposed to be a day of fun, and just, you know, that's it. Just to welcome in the spring and summer, and like the feeling of like renewal. And we got these people outside of the building, protesters that put little notes on everybody's cars that said, I don't know, something about Jesus.
Something about Jesus. Yeah. Something about Jesus.
Yes, it said like.
By the way, speaking of Jesus vandalizing, I got the marker off my car.
Wait, what?
So I talked about it last episode. I had a sticker. I have a bunch of stickers on the back of my car because my bumper's peeling, and I'm just trying to distract it. So I have stickers that say like "Be a kind human," "Love yourself," and then I have "Hail Satan" on it. And somebody scribbled out Satan and wrote Jesus and permanent marker.
You did mention that last week. Yeah.
So then Roger was like, "Hey, if you can't get that marker off, just change it so it says nail Jesus."
I forgot you told me all about that.
So yeah, because like I thought it was ironic because I have all these like positive, uplifting stickers, and I was trying to help promote like Satanism isn't dark. Like half the time they don't even believe in Satan. So I had that on there and somebody vandalized. Like, I have so many nice other bumper stickers, like, to show like I'm not being a hateful person. I hate hateful bumper stickers like that people put on there, and it's just so negative, or like they're talking trash about a certain group. I hate that. So I was trying to like counteract it, and somebody still vandalized my bumper. But yeah, go on. What were the pamphlets?
Yeah, I said something about like Jesus is the only way. I don't know, something like that. And they in and outside of it and just protesting the whole thing. So we didn't have a very big turnout. Thank you. And we did a water ceremony on the river to bless the town of where I live, and to just basically, it's the Iowa River. So we were thinking, as we bless this, then it's going to bless a lot of other things. And so they followed us down to the river and stared at us the whole time. It was super fun.
Like your guys are contaminating the main water source.
Right.
It should have mooned them.
Rose petal.
Give you something to look at.
I don't know. So that was, that was just a little people. Yes. I try to steer away from or even pay attention to any of it. Right. And I have people that will message me and say, it is against my religion, but I'm really interested. Can you tell me a little bit more about your services so I can understand, at least trying to tell them, no, I'm not doing this in the name of, I don't know, evil and, things like that. So
yeah, because there's people that truly believe that you aren't talking to people that crossed over, that it's just you think you are, but it's just a demon that's letting you think that it's somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then they said it doesn't matter if she's helping people, it's Satan. And I'm like,
well, look, if Satan is helpful, then I'll take it. It's fine. Come on.
Like, I don't know how else to, there's nothing evil about anything.
Yeah.
I blessed the place. I asked for all my angels, my guides, God or source, however you want to look at it, to surround me, my client, only let the good things in, things that are going to be helpful. Yeah, it's amazing what you'll come across. But honestly, I think the more I put my energy towards just helping people and not really towards that, then I'm okay. I mean, I've found a really good community and a lot of people, like-minded people, who are able to just be sisters or brothers, in this regards. And if you talked to me, I don't know, 10 years ago, I really thought I was the only person on this planet that had to be alone in this and just do it on my own and just deal with this quote unquote gift, which didn't seem much like a gift at that point. Because it felt like it was something that was there, but I couldn't really do it because it wasn't allowed, or it was not allowed. I don't know if that's a word, but I wouldn't have been accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Things have changed. Things have changed a lot.
Do you still you also are in the Bible though, so I feel like the fact that being misunderstood is just going to be a key thing. But like, have you ever had people that think you're like a witch? And as we're like, oh, well, I'm in love with this person, and they're like, can you like make something happen with that? Like,
I do, and I always say, honey, you have all the power and within you to attract whatever it is that you need for yourself. I can't do that for you. And I mean, I also I explain, do you know that writing or spelling is called spelling for a reason? Like when you spell words, because your words create spells. Like, no matter what our thoughts are, our words are, that's all you were putting that out into the universe. So be very careful about what you think, what you say, how you feel. Like, I know it's not easy to, I know I'm getting into a whole nother subject, but the thing is that you are your own creator of your own reality. So it is important. And this is what I tell them, that they have the power. I do not hold that power. Sometimes
so much. So many people complain about like their circumstances, you know, they're stuck with A, B, C, you know, I don't have this, or I wish I had that. Do it. Go get it. Well, I can't. Yeah, you can. You just don't want to do what would be required of it. You know, maybe you would have to quit that job. Maybe you would have to downsize your house. Like, there's a lot of things you can accomplish. You just might not want to make the sacrifices to do it. So I fully am on board with that concept of whatever you want to make happen, you make it happen. Now,
well, you know, with just you two making your own careers now, like getting out from being on the grind, you know, I feel like that's very similar to how people put their energy towards a religion instead of, like you said, with it's all within you. Instead of praying out, you could manifest, and it's your energy going out. Instead of putting all your faith into your, you know, your payroll and your boss, that's the only way you're going to pay your bills, and not putting any like focus on your confidence, you give that energy to somebody else.
Yeah. What's the point in that?
Right. Now, granted, I thought I would have a lot more free time when I quit my job. I'm like, oh, I don't have to work, you know, 40 to 60 hours a week anymore. I'm going to have so much free time. No.
Because you know time is money now. Now you really know time is money.
I think of my time in dollars. Like, I think, okay, that's going to take up this much of my time. Whereas if I were working or doing something, I could be making this much money per hour, you know. So that's like how I look at my day. I have a little dry erase board, actually, that, you know, Sunday through Saturday, I track every week because I don't have a payroll. I'm not a W-2 employee. I don't, you know, well, I take that back. I work 3 hours a week at a gym, 4 hours a week at a gym that I am a payroll employee. It's 4 hours. But outside of that, all the money I make, like, I track it on a dry erase board every day. I'm like, okay, today I made this much money. And at the end of the day, I total it up. And then I have a little booklet calendar I track. Okay, every week I made this much money. Because
do you ever give yourself a pizza party when you do a good job?
So look, I am working on a very slow weight cut right now, mostly because I don't like to suffer and I love food. So if I do it slowly, you know, it's easier mentally for me. So no, long story short, no pizza. And that's why I'm eating like packets of, you know, peanut butter. So I wanted a little snacky snack. So I get a packet of peanut butter. Like, it's whatever.
One thing I'm actually curious about, because I mean, obviously you're very highly empathetic along with intuitive. When you're talking about how it's draining to do like so many sessions, is part of that from the energy you have to use to communicate, or the energy you're getting from them? Because it's upsetting, you know, I mean, they're happy, but it's very emotional. And I'm sure like almost every session someone cries.
Typically, yes. And it's both of those things that you said. It will be the energy I'm getting from that person, but it's also the energy I'm pulling from the other side. But also, what's funny is most people will say, I was so tired after our reading. Like, I drain the other person of their energy too when I'm doing it. So it goes back and forth.
I can't imagine the energy load. Not even just thinking of it as like energy from these sources, just like your mental energy. You know, like previously, you know, I worked for the DOC. You know, there was a lot of emotional days, a lot of high stress days. Even now, like, I work with clients where, you know, they've had these big emotional issues and they're at the gym trying to work on themselves. That's emotionally draining for me. And the subject matter isn't really emotions. So the fact that that is your subject matter, I can't imagine. Like, that's like, there's days I get done with a client and I'm like, holy cow, that was a lot. And on the surface, we're just talking about losing weight. Like, you know, there's so much more that goes into it. So that, I couldn't imagine that.
For real, I appreciate that. It's also very gratifying too, though. And I love to see, like, when people, you almost see like this click when the shift, when it does do that healing piece that it's supposed to. So it's like really satisfying to be able to help people. And I don't, I mean, literally feel like, I'm not gonna say like every time, but I've changed people's lives and the trajectory of their life within an hour. I've had people who were alcoholics who stopped drinking. I've had people who were suicidal that went on to thrive. You know, I've had people who like were going to get divorced, fix their marriage, you know, and just like within that hour. Or do you see what I mean? Like, wow. I couldn't be more happy. So yes, it's draining, but a lot of times I like to explain too, it's draining in the sense of, if you've ever went for a good long run and you get back and you're tired, but you feel good.
Great. Yes.
Feels like.
I don't run per se, but yes, I know.
I used to remember a long time ago. Yeah.
I feel like running is a form of self-mutilation, so I just walk really far.
Okay, good workout.
Run. Coach makes me do sprints, but it's for a short period of time. Like long distance running, absolutely not.
Yeah, I'll do like a jog.
Little jaunt down the street.
Little jaunt, yeah. So that's the best way I can describe. But or a good workout, even like where your muscles hurt, but you're like.
No, I definitely I can relate to that. Yeah, you're miserable, you're sore, you hurt, but gosh, you feel good.
Exactly.
Would you say that you feel like there's like a time frame people should wait before they contact you of somebody passing? Like, do you think there is a too soon?
Everyone's different.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a too soon, but everyone's different. So usually if someone contacts me and says, my so-and-so passed, blah, 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 at this time, I will feel into it to see if it feels right or not for that person. Because like I've had someone do it like a couple days after someone's passed. Their funeral's this weekend. I'm going to see you before. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no, I dealt with a death, and literally the day of, like authorities are still in my house. I was calling my boss like, hey, I'm not gonna be able to make it to work. And he's like, look, I'm sure the look on his face was like, why the fuck are you calling me? Like, I'm not gonna make it to work. That was like my first, not my first thought, but you know, once I get outside, I'm like, I'm not gonna make it to work. Like, so I understand people like making those like rash judgments, like, oh, I've got to call her right now. Like, we've got to talk about this.
Yeah.
Well, because I feel like society makes people feel like they can't really grieve. Like they're like, oh, I got to get on. Like my life continues, or everyone's gonna think that I'm just holding on to grief.
I remember 2021. My dad died. And by the way, when your own people die, even when you're a psychic medium, you don't have complete connection in contact like I do with your guys' people, because my emotions are too much in the way. I mean, I can converse with them, but it's still that grieving process. I can't just pick up that spiritual line and talk to him. Anyway, I had to go back to work like a week later because I was self-employed and we had to pay our bills. Do you know how hard that was? I just wanted to talk about like what it takes to read for somebody. Like we talked about the COVID thing. My guides were like, nope, you're not doing it. Well, if I'm not in a good place mentally and I'm not in alignment and I can't feel that sense of peace within, it's near impossible to be able to read for somebody. I have to be in a good place, in a good alignment.
Well, yeah, because like, what if your client, their dad passed, and like you're trying to talk to them, and then it's gonna bring back all of your stuff.
That did happen a couple times. You know, when I said I went back too early, I mean, I could still read for them, but then like the things that was getting from their dad were from my dad too. I could feel it. And so then it made me emotional. Luckily, the clients were understanding that I was crying, like tears down as I'm telling them the message. And it was almost, I don't know, it was kind of nice to be able to have someone to grieve with. I know it sounds weird, But I mean, I was crying, but they understood me and I understood them. And anyway, the messages got across what needed to, but I wouldn't recommend that to any other mediums or anyone out there. If you have time to grieve the process, we need to take time for ourselves and have a lot of self-care, no matter what profession you're in. I think it's so important. And that's just one of those things I think I'm always preaching, and I'm always hearing, preaching to other people, and I need to listen to it myself, is take care of yourself. Make sure your cup is full. I just heard the other day somebody say, make sure your cup is full and never give your fucking cup to anyone else. Only give them whatever drains onto the platter below.
Let them waterfall that shit.
All yours. Don't give any of that away. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So, I don't know. Anyway.
One thing I did see a lot in videos when they're talking about, because I was like trying to find different subjects on mediumship just to like have like more knowledge, like what to talk about. And one thing they talked about was to be careful about scammers is they will fish for information. They'll keep asking questions that you have to keep like feeding into. They say like, oh, does the name begin with this? Like, oh, well, most people know somebody with an M or a J name. And they're like, was it your dad? Was your brother? Was your uncle? Was your cousin?
No, that's what I was expecting, because that's how it's always portrayed. That's how you always see it. These people saying, oh, does this ring any bells, or does this seem familiar? Like, it's all like leading questions, and I was like, oh, this will be interesting, but that's not what this is at all. Like, this is very interesting.
Well, let's say that I was talking Jessica, right? Jessica?
Yes.
I was talking to you, and I would say, I'm feeling a male presence that would feel to me on your father's side. And I believe his name would start with a J. That to me is not quite fishing. And I'm not saying, you know what I mean? Like,
right. It's narrow, but like, it's like you're only getting some of the information. So you're only relaying what you get, instead of, does the M mean anything? Well, what? It's
right. No, yeah. And then typically it'll go more with feelings first before it'll go with descriptors. Usually the descriptors come after the feelings for me.
Can I tell you something hilarious about what you just said, though? Male figure, father's side J. My brother's name is Jason. I know, like, we're just out here giving random examples, but I was like, oh, that's
funny.
Is he getting a new job, your brother's?
I honestly have no idea. I don't talk to him very often. He might be. I don't know. He's been in the same profession for a long time. I don't we have no like ill will between us. We just don't talk very often.
I have 3 brothers. I never talk to them. It's not because I don't love them. It's just we have our own life.
Yep, exactly. Like I'm like the baby by far, because they're all half siblings.
Okay.
But they're all significantly older than me. Like, so I'm just like,
you're like an only child, essentially.
Right. Like, I grew up with him visiting in the summers, and that was it. So people are like, oh, yeah, brothers. How was that growing up? I'm like,
I don't know.
Like, it was perfectly fine.
If you have boy cousins, it's about the same.
Right. Like, see them sometimes, go home when we're done. Like,
right on. No, yeah. So, it's interesting. I don't know, the process too, because like the symbols that I get, sometimes they'll have different meanings. Like one time I said to somebody, your grandfather is showing up, and I believe he was a farmer because he's showing me a John Deere tractor. And I described him some more, and they go, well, that is our grandfather, but he wasn't a farmer. I was like, oh, they're like, but he used to collect little John Deere tractors. Okay. So I don't always get it right, but usually there's the context. Maybe I get wrong. Do you see what I mean?
Right. No, that makes sense.
Do you ever have like their spirit, who's there to see him, is like arguing with you? Like you're like, oh, I think it's this, and they're like, no.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, is it that?
I won't even be looking at the person. I'll be like, you're so and so, this and this and this, and they're like, no. And I'm like, never mind, just kidding. So they're really pretty good at usually like letting me know, like, nope, you said it wrong. Yeah, that does occur, but usually I'm able to correct it before. And sometimes, it's interesting. Things will come out of my mouth without me being able to process it. It just comes out. Oh, Like, and sometimes they're offensive things. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't, and they're like, no, that's exactly what they would say. Or they start laughing and I don't know. Spirit has a funny way of working.
Mm-hmm. Because yeah, there's people that they can channel.
Yeah, I do that too. When I do my spiritual advisory sessions, I do a lot of channeling where their guides will physically, like, they'll speak through me.
Is that weird? Like, is that scary at all?
Not if it's coming. It could be if you let the wrong things in, but
Yeah.
I make sure to set my intentions beforehand, so that it is only the higher vibrational beings that are able to access me as a channel. So,
Because I imagine kind of like Ouija boards, there's a lot of people that have fear of like, oh, well, you're going to have something linger and stuck to you.
well, I don't like Ouija boards, just because it's kind of like you're just opening the door to like anything.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's a way to do it where you only, but I don't know. I wouldn't. It's just, I've seen too many things happen when it comes to that kind of divination, like with the Ouija board. I'm not an expert on it though. Maybe there is some way to do it.
I've always felt weird about them, honestly. Like, and that's one thing. It's like a gut thing. Like, I've messed with tarot cards when I was like a teenager and stuff like that. That never like scared me or bothered me. But I really feel very apprehensive about Ouija boards.
Me too. It makes me go, ugh. I've lived in way too many haunted houses, and one of them that I lived in, like when I went to go tour to see if we wanted to live there was a Ouija board. I was like, oh, and they're like, oh no, use it. We just had this. I'm like, oh, and at the time they needed the plate. I was like, fine. Big mistake, man. Whatever was in that house followed me for at least 3 or 4 houses. It was bad. It was evil.
Was it just like a lingering feeling you had, or do like things fall around you randomly, or?
It was terrible. Torturing the kids at night.
Oh.
I'd see it, like not like with my mind's eye. Not just me either would see this thing. It would throw things around. It would. It caused a lot of bugs in the houses I was in. Like what are those Japanese beetles? Like outside, like tons of them, or flies like outside the windows. Like, it was weird stuff, guys. Like,
I lived in a house that was haunted, and it's interesting that you bring that because I remember it had like a bug problem, and yeah, you would just like, and it would, I only had my oldest at the time, and he was always waking up screaming in the middle of the night. Like something was like fucking with him all the time.
Exactly what would happen. My eldest daughter was a baby at the time, and that would happen. The doors would slam shut. My older two and my youngest actually are all gifted as well. And my oldest, my son, he would always say when we lived in the apartment, like before all this happened, he had a green monster that was like basically his guide or his angel, because this green fog would show up like in photos and stuff, but this was like a gentle, loving spirit. When we moved into this house with the Ouija board, he would say, I don't want to sleep in my room. Black monster's in there, and I don't want to sleep with black monster in there. And then my eldest daughter was a baby at the time, and she woke up like with a blood curdling scream. And then after that happened, the front door like slammed shut and knocked, and it was a lot. I don't want to do it again. Ouija boards are not for me.
I remember my oldest, now you mentioned that when they were younger, they had a creepy imaginary friend that had no eyes. And I remember they were telling my friend about it, and they're like, yeah, like, it's so weird, she has no eyes, and it's not even Halloween. And her friend would get mad when her real friends would come over. And then I remember they were like panicking one day, and they're like, where's my pillow? Where's my pillow? It's like a decorative kind of like pillow. And I was like, I don't know, like somewhere in your room. They're like, she took it. Like, what are you talking about? I was like, I had my friend over, and she got mad, and she took it. And like they were just like frantic. And I remember I was asking, like, tell me more about this friend. And they would look over like in a corner of the room, and then they're like, I can't talk about it right now. And I'm like, no, like I have questions. And they're like, and they were like looking like, stop talking about her. And I'm like, this is weird. This is weird.
100%. Yeah. And
The
then it would make,
kids
do
are
you think
creepy.
it
Kids are weird.
I don't even know. Like, yeah, this thing was, anyway, I got rid of it finally.
What did you have to do? Did you like sage your house 5 times or?
When I moved and when I became more spiritual and I started actually doing more of this work, I think that my guides, my angels, my power became too much for it. Like it wasn't able to, almost like it wasn't able to cling on anymore, you know, like a parasite. It wasn't able to feed off of me anymore.
It needed like that fear.
Yeah, because I think fear feeds it, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I would tell my brother and stuff, you know, like I feel like even if somebody wants to put something negative on you, as long as you don't believe it's going to do anything, then it's not.
Yeah.
I can see that. Like in my house, like I've had people be like, "Oh, you should have moved out of your house a long time ago. You shouldn't live in your house. Like it's a bad place to be. You shouldn't live there." So, like I had a pretty traumatic event happen here, and you know I still live here. It's my house. Like I've been here for about 10 years now. Everyone's like, no, I'm sure it's haunted. Like that was a really bad thing, and you know you got to move. And I'm like, are you gonna pay my mortgage? Like, are you gonna pay my down payment? Like, and I have no issue with this house. I don't see weird stuff going on. Like, I'm like, that's silly. It's nonsense. It's a house. But I feel like if someone were to have that mindset of, oh, something bad happened here, you know, there's bad things here, they probably would have a bad time here. Like, I think a lot of it is what you allow yourself to take in. And for me, I'm like, no, until you're buying my next house, we're here.
I agree with you. I think it all has to do with like what you allow. What how do you set your intentions, right? Like this house is my house, it's my home, and it's like you're claiming it and you're not letting that other, like, and some people do. Whether it be living or dead, you know, you can feel the vibe in a house when you walk in, whether it, I don't know,
yeah,
it's good or bad, right? I mean, I think, can't most people feel that?
well, it's like, you know, when you meet people, sometimes like somebody can be friendly, but at the same time you have that weird feeling like,
Yeah.
well,
I've always felt that way. Like when I meet people, just instantly, you don't have to talk to me. Like I can see you from across the room and I'm like, they seem nice, but they're not. Like, I've always been very observant with people, I guess, as far as, oh, we're going to be friends, or I'm not interested. Like, just, I think it's because I'm super introverted. So I spend a lot of my time watching as opposed to like just flying by the seat of my pants and interacting with people. Like, I prefer to observe things because, you know, don't talk to me. Like,
I think I'm with omnivore. What's that? Like where you're an introvert and an extrovert? That's me.
Well, you can be extroverted introvert where you prefer your alone time, but if you're forced into that public setting, you like make yourself thrive for a little bit.
I can relate to that. My social battery is just little. Like when Isaac and I go out, like he'll know, like if I'm like, hey, we gotta go, he's like, okay. But like this last week, I went out twice. I went out with friends 2 different times. On the 4th, there was a pool party. And then on the 8th, we did a seminar at the gym, and the gym owners hosted another pool party for like the whole gym. And I went both times. I stayed. I hung out. Very proud of myself.
Very
protecting your energy.
Right. I could stay in my house by myself all day, every day, and be perfectly fine. Like I don't need anywhere. Me
too. I enjoy doing what I do, but then I also very much enjoy my alone time or my family time. I need that in order to recalibrate, like in order to reset. Otherwise, I'm really worn out. I think it's like another job, but oh my God. Like,
will you have to like open yourself for the readings, or can you just be out and about and you can just like be bombarded with other people's stuff that's hanging around them?
Both. So sometimes I do have to open myself up more, like when I'm doing a reading. And usually when I'm just out and about, things will just kind of stick to themselves. Like I don't pay attention, I guess. Maybe someone like I turn the volume down per se, or lower. You can't turn it off. But sometimes there's something that just really wants to come in and you just can't ignore it. One time I was at Hy-Vee and there was this girl that walked by me, and then I heard, "Tell her she got the job." And I'm like, I'm not telling her anything. And then she walked by, "Tell her she got the job." And I'm like, no. They're like,
Just
"Tell her."
do a shop.
Tell her.
That's weird.
I went up to her. I'm like, "Hey, this might sound strange, but I'm supposed to tell you you got the job." And she's like, "Oh," she's like, "I just had an interview yesterday. Are you psychic or something?" And I said, "Yeah, or something." So
You should just lie. Like, oh, I work. I'm the secretary there. Like, I'm just,
Like,
they
I
were
know-
gonna call you, but here you are here, so I'm just saving the time.
yeah, so I don't know. So I mean, randomly things like that will happen, but for the most part, except sometimes I'll be like in traffic and there'll be somebody next to me, like, and all of a sudden I'll be hearing their life story in my head or like what they're going through. I'm like, no, I don't.
I'm just picturing you in traffic going, roll down your window. No,
Hey,
I have something to tell you.
Like the light turns green. Like, no, you gotta stop. You gotta stop.
yeah, it's something. It's something. Especially, what I hate is when I get things about animals or kids and it's not a pretty picture. Those things drive me insane to be
I was just gonna ask, does this stop at humans?
No, nope, absolutely. I connect with animals probably easier than I do humans.
Because it's all telepathic.
Mm-hmm.
Same.
Yeah. Yes.
So I have a question. Like when people say like they have like an animal and it's like harboring like a lost loved one, is it just channeling through that animal, or did it become that animal at some point?
It just channels through that animal.
Okay, so that animal is its own creature.
It is its own creature. It's like cardinals. Cardinals are a really big thing for a lot of people who've passed away. They just like to channel through the cardinal to let their people know that they're around. Yeah. And have you ever noticed, actually, to be honest, sometimes people who've passed will channel other people. So I saw one of my friends the other day at this event I was at, and she said something, and then I said, right on, right on. I never say that. Never say that. Her son, who passed away, she's like, I always know he's around when somebody just randomly says right on, because that's what he used to always say.
That's crazy.
And I wasn't even in my medium mode. I was just me. So right on. And I never, anyway, it was crazy. So yes, they will. Otherwise you'll just hear something random that you would never, or I was doing a reading. And I'm like, "Oh, buddy," and she's like, "Oh, that's what they used to call him." And I was like, like it just comes out anyway.
Do you feel hijacked when that happens?
I mean, I think it's really cool. Especially when strangers say stuff to you that they don't know that they're saying something to you. That's a message. I don't know if that makes sense, but but they don't know. I'm trying to think. Or it came up like a song. Okay, so I used to sing in a band, and I used to sing with my dad, my sister, and my stepmom, and
Like the Partridge Family?
Yeah. And a song came on the radio at me and my daughter were at the grocery store. All these things happen at the grocery store. I don't know. But I says, "Oh, that's a song Grandpa used to sing." I said, "I wonder if it was on the 4th of July, and we used to sing all this list of songs, And I said, "Did you know we used to sing in front of the town on the 4th of July? Mommy would be up on stage right now singing, And that song, was on," and I was explaining that. And I said, "I wonder if that was him, just letting us know he's around." And then, whatever, go on. And next song, our band was called Infinity. And the chorus was something, something infinity. And I was like, well, there's my sign. That's my dad.
Mm-hmm.
he'll manipulate music. He manipulates people, license plates. I'll randomly see it. Like everything lines up. I had a client come in one morning after I had heard in my head from my dad, "I'm so proud of you," because I started this business and it was really starting to, be something. And then he loved the Iowa Hawkeyes. Somebody pulls in front of me. His license plate says "Proud Dad," and it's a Hawkeyes license plate. All right, maybe Dad's proud of me. Get to my appointment. My client says to me, "Hey, something weird happened to me this morning." And I said, "Okay." And she says, "Brushing my teeth, and I heard a man's voice in my head, and he said, 'Tell Marsha I'm proud of her.'" What? So my dad's really good at communicating, and apparently he's proud of me, right? But it'll come through strangers. It'll come through whoever. It'll come through license plates, birds, colors, rainbows, nature, everything. You just have to pay attention. So.
It's like your life's Where's Waldo.
It is.
Looking for the signs.
Right.
Well, this lasted a little bit longer than I was expecting.
You cut parts out, I suppose, or make it a part 1 and 2. Can you do that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Now that we kind of got you introduced, I'm sure we can definitely come up with like some subjects later on and then kind of get your perspective on it as well. Because like Jessica was saying, I think a lot of people just hear psychic medium and they have this whole idea of a character that's going to be talking to them. And it's regular ass people.
And you next time, like I'm looking at like your background and your background, I'm like, oh, they're so professional and fun, and I look like I'm shooting from my prison cell.
Oh,
I only look professional because I went to the hair salon today.
To be fair, my house is still in disarray. Like I'm still dealing with the insurance company, so like I have nowhere to go.
Her house got flooded from the inside.
oh, I'm so sorry. That sucks.
Oh, no, the best part's just how it happened, which my cat, by the way, knocked a cactus over again today. I was out of town, so I'm an athlete. I was out of town for an event, and literally like the day after I left, my cat knocked a cactus out of the window that was like the windowsill above the sink, turned the sink on. It fell into the drain of the sink, so the sink clogged, and the water in the sink ran for at least like 4 days. Completely destroyed like about half of my house. So I'm living out of 2 bedrooms right now. The one I'm in is my living room, dining room, the kitchen.
It's a dorm.
It's a dorm room, and then in the other room is just where I sleep. So I bounce around the house with my laptop every time we record a show, and I'm like, well, this will be my background today. I used to have an office. Now everything is crammed into that room, so technically I still have an office. It's just all of my stuff is in there. So
some Final Destination type stuff.
Earlier today, like I send Snapchats of my cats to Isaac all the time, like just being cats. And he was like chewing on my cactus and knocked it over. And I like had like a flashback, like, no.
Well, I feel like there's a lot of good things that are going to come from this shit show that you've had to go through. So this is, it seems like a bad thing, but what Spirit is showing me is it's actually going to turn out to be something that is an improvement from where you were to start. I don't know what that means, but all I hear is like it's even better.
Well, you're about to get a facelift.
Like that's been my outlook though, because I'm like, well, all this stuff's going to get replaced professionally by professional contractors. It's going to be newer, cleaner. Everything's going to be done. My house value is going to go up. I've been decluttering in the process because I'm like, I have too much stuff. So already, we're looking up.
And you get the van. You got the van.
So with the van though, the title is having some issues. The guy gave it to me and it's a bad title. And he's like, I swear I'll get it fixed. So we're seeing how that goes. But, I'm building a camper. And so, yeah, it's a process. But I got this guy. He's my buddy.
Hey, buddy.
Well, naked cat.
Oh, yeah. He's actually kind of like, I call him a goblin. He's kind of Satan. I don't know. He's a little bastard.
I do understand your frustration with how your cats are with Isaac, because all my cats love Daniel more than me now. And I live with them all the time. And every time he comes over, they just flood him, and then they don't hang out with me even when he's gone.
Yep, that cat is attached to my hip day in, day out until Isaac shows up, and then they're best friends. My cat that I adopted from the animal shelter like 13 years ago, best friends with him when he comes over. Cool.
Well, at least it means you guys got good people.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because cats, they can sense that like hardcore. Cats are
dogs will just love anybody.
Yeah, the dogs love him, but they love everyone.
Cats will be like, no. If you're no good, like.
I mean, sometimes they do that to me. Like,
just go based off of your energy too. So then, you know, you have to check yourself.
Right. Hey, why my cat's like me right now?
Well, I think what I did was bad was I had the one, and he was just always so loving. And I'm like, you know what? You need a friend. I'm not here all the time. You know, I got to go to work. So I got him a friend. Now he don't care about me anymore.
Well, I have 4 cats. So,
yeah.
And 4 dogs.
Wow.
And kitty.
And 4 chickens.
You are in the 4s.
That's just how that's how it's happened. I don't know, but it's fun. So
we got
all the time in the world to spend with them now. So
we got a catio for our patio.
Now those are nice.
Yeah, he loves it. We go out when we can, and he'll just sit out there. We have a field right behind our house, so he just watches the bunnies and.
Oh yeah.
I put mine in a backpack.
I want to get one for Smeagol. That's what I call the little naked one. I call him Smeagol.
I'll send you the link of the one I got on Amazon.
Okay.
But my cat loves it. The other one doesn't, but he was an outdoor cat, so when we try and put him in a backpack, I don't think he gets the best vibes from it.
Yeah, my old cat, he's indoor, outdoor. Like, he doesn't even use the litter box. Like, he just goes outside every morning. Like, he wants to go outside. Like, he'll go in and out all day. I guarantee I could not put his fat ass in a backpack. He would be like, absolutely not. He's like 14 pounds.
Oh,
he's big.
That'd be like some weight training, like a weighted vest.
Right?
I'll put him in there and go on a walk.
There you go.
Just like, my cat's 10 pounds, and I feel him after a while.
Right? Yeah. Oh, and another subject we talk about sometimes too is intuition and kids. Because that's a big one. Because kids are naturally born with that intuitive.
And they say creepy things.
And they have no filters. No filters. It just comes out.
Yeah, it just comes out.
I'm pretty sure the daughter you have right there, she's helped with like a reading we've done before, because she came in and she was picking cards.
Yeah, she's really pretty intuitive. It's kind of crazy. She's done it for me, like with my dad too. My mom, she reads my mind all the time. I think it's very interesting. Like, literally the other day, I was like sitting there, I was scrolling through social media or something, and I had this random thought. What I was watching had nothing to do with food or anything like that. And I random thought, I should make chocolate chip cookies. It's been a long time. At that exact moment when I said that, she goes, "You should make chocolate chip cookies." I mean, there was nothing to trigger that. It was just, I was like, what did you just say?
To be fair, I'm always thinking about chocolate chip cookies.
Well, I know. But yeah, we did end up making them. Yeah. So, yeah. Do you want to pick a card for the ladies?
Ooh. Okay. Free show.
Which one? That one? Okay. Okay.
Unexpected visit. That's my worst nightmare, is unexpected visitors.
If I get a Jehovah's Witness over here.
Right?
I have a guy come to my door today. Like, I was terrified. My doorbell rang and I was like, no, it was just UPS. It was fine.
Oh, no. Okay. Detours, surprises, and paradigm shifts. Expect the unexpected. No matter how detailed your plans are and how clear you believe the road ahead to be, there are times when the best plans are waylaid by unforeseen circumstances. At first, detours may seem inconvenient, but a surprise turn of events signals that the adventure of life is beginning to get interesting. No one can plan for synchronicity, for fate and destiny to meet, except spirit, who knows what you can't comprehend for now. Life is full of surprises, so stay on your toes and enjoy this exciting new adventure you weren't expecting. There's a plan for your life that may not match up with your agenda. And Jessica, for you, I think that's what just happened to you.
Yeah, I was like, that seems
So I
tracks.
got a text message while we've been doing our show from a matchmaker. Like I was supposed to be doing one event, it got changed to a different event, and I was actually just offered a new opponent for this event while we were sitting here doing this. Not in a sport I typically do. So I know Allie's like, what are you talking about over there? So which hopefully I can get that locked in and announce that soon.
Yeah, so I know you can't talk about it right now.
Yeah, I did get an unexpected turn of events while we were sitting here. So, you know,
I was just going to say, I'll let that be yours because I have nothing going on to where that would be positive for me.
Right? Yeah, no, I got a text like, that's why like earlier I was trying to be like super polite about it. I was like texting on my phone, like letting him know like, hey, I'm busy right now.
Yes. And yours, Allie, says movement. Movement. Okay, 28. Let's read it.
I've always been moving.
Ostrich. That makes me happy.
This is the time for positive momentum as you come out of a period of restriction. You're in a stage of new adventure and discovery, and you may feel compelled to take a trip, to change your hair, or move your home or business. Regardless, you can't remain where you are anymore. You feel compelled to go forward. No matter what your inquiry, you will see your dreams take form and doors previously shut begin to open as if by magic. Movement is also a state of mind. The fog lifts and you now know the actions you need to take. This isn't the time for fear. Let it go and move forward.
Which is ironic because I always see 555 so much, and that's always the number of change.
Wow. Yeah, and you just changed your hair today.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I work at a job too where you change. The job promotes changing to different locations constantly because it helps. It's progressive within the group. So, and I had been thinking about how I've been at this one spot for like a minute, and I need to start preparing myself to get relocated possibly soon.
Okay. It's good stuff though. I feel for both of you in that regards. Change, but not necessarily bad change, you know?
I feel like being scared of change is very hindering for a lot of things because change is usually pretty good as long as you're open with it.
I agree. Even if it is like losing a job or something like that, or a relationship that goes wrong, it just means there's something better out there for you.
Mm-hmm. Or going to a whole different state.
Oh, logically speaking, change makes sense and it shouldn't be feared. But when my anxiety gets involved with my little, ADHD action, we don't like change. It's very stressful.
Grounding your energy and breathing, paying attention to your breathing, like even doing like breath work can be helpful for that. I have ADHD too, so I understand that. And it's really, it's not having to have control of things all the time, but knowing that the only thing you really have control of is your thoughts. And
I struggled really bad with it, honestly, till like my late 20s. And that was kind of the mindset I had to get. Like, I would get mad when I couldn't control something, or, I need to do it all by myself because that way I'm the one controlling everything. But that's how I've dealt with it. I'm like, okay, maybe I can't control XYZ, but I can control myself. So that was kind of my revised approach. And it's helped a lot. Like I self-regulate pretty well.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Totally know what you mean though. And it's the thing is like you never with those types of things, anxiety and things, it's not like, oh, I learned how to do it and I'm better. You have to completely always be working on it.
Yes, it's constant work. Yes.
And it comes back. It's not like it's just fixed once you know how to fix it. It's
right.
that's always growing, always learning, always doing it over and over again. But I have one good thing that's happened for me is now that I've been able to really change my mindset. Once I stay in that mindset more and more and more, it's easier for me to get back there from when I would, because we are all human and we have highs and lows. But I don't stay in my low as long now.
Mhm.
That I'm normally typically more at a high.
Yes.
I think we're at a good closing point now. Hopefully this kind of gets your name not only out there, but also just they really shed a lot of that stigma that's around like the stuff you do and like what people's perception of it is, because a lot of it that was pushed out in the public was usually people that weren't being as honest about their practice.
Yeah.
I'm definitely way more like, this is not what I expected. I'm very pleasantly surprised today. So definitely.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It was nice to meet you.
Yes, absolutely. And for sure, I would be really cool to bring you back on like for future topics. If we get, we kind of go back and forth on what are we going to talk about. So it might be really cool, like depending on the topic, have you come in and, chime in on whatever we're talking about.
100%. Love to. Thanks for having me.
For sure.
Yeah, thanks for taking some time for us.
Are your fingers all blue?
Huh?
Are your fingers all blue?
Yeah, so
okay.
Even though I didn't dye my hair, during the process when they were putting it in, a glob of it actually got over my eye, and I was like, oh. So then I was like trying to get it, and we were trying to clean my face. So luckily my face isn't dyed blue, but it did stay on my fingers a little bit.
That's fair.
So I was like, wow, I didn't even do my hair, but I can pretend like I did.
Right. That's funny.
That's doable.
Well,
mine was the roots that was tricky.
It looks great.
Thank you.
Well, we'll check you later.
Yeah. That's like, we'll definitely keep you posted and get you back on here again.
All right. Sounds great.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks,
and
guys.
thanks everybody for tuning in. But we're gonna go now.
Bye.